people, it's me, Anja, my pronouns are she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new recent reads video. The first book on this list is called The Truth According to Blue. This book is a middle-aged contemporary following a young girl who's looking for friendship, sunken treasure, and her place in the world. This book was solid, and it was good, and it was really sweet and wholesome. Honestly, I ended up rating it 3.5 stars because I enjoyed it and I liked it, but I didn't absolutely love it, so I didn't rate it any higher than that. However, with that said, I still do recommend it. First of all, the main character is such a wonderful, well-developed, lovely, distinct main character, and she also has diabetes, so the diabetes representation in this book was solid and good. I love it when books have such casual disability representation. Don't get me wrong, I understand the importance of having a story about a main character overcoming their insecurity of their disability, because as a person who has struggled with internalized ableism, that's very, very important and timely. But I think it's also just as important and timely to have casual representation as well. Like her storyline and her plot had nothing to do with her disability. It was just added to the story like another element of her as a person. You know what I mean? It was just so casual. I really, really enjoyed it. So anyway, aside from that, and aside from the main character being a wonderful, lovely person, the plot of the story was intriguing and was good too. And the friendship of the two girls on the cover was very wholesome and very sweet. So like I said, I rated this book 3.5 stars, and I would recommend it. The next book on this list is called A Kind of Spark. This book is another middle-aged contemporary, and I ended up rating it 5 stars because I absolutely loved it. For those who don't know, this book follows a young autistic girl who's campaigning for a memorial in honor of these witch trials that happened years ago in her Scottish hometown. This book is so fantastic and it's so excellent. It's absolutely so amazing. First of all, the main character is such a wonderful, well-developed, distinct main character, and I was so emotionally attached to her, and as a result, I was so emotionally invested in her story. The plot of the story is so intriguing, and it was so well done. I was so immersed in the story that I didn't even notice how short the book actually is. You know what I mean? This book is so good, and I really loved how the main character had such a wonderful, lovely support system, because I know how important that is, especially for young disabled people, because so often we are infantilized and nobody listens to us. So I love that this main character had such a wonderful support system, and she is such a wonderful character, and like I said, I was so emotionally attached to her, and I'm so excited to read more from this author. This book is so good, and there's nothing that I would change about it, and I absolutely loved every single second of it. So with that, I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called 54 Things Wrong with Gwendolyn. This book is a middle-aged contemporary, and it follows a young girl as she navigates her undiagnosed medical disability. I think this book is so good, and I really enjoyed it, so I ended up rating it 4 stars, and I would highly recommend it. I love reading books about disabled main characters, not just for the representation, but also for the relatability, since I'm a disabled main character in my own story. So reading this book about a disabled main character was so timely, and it was so important, and it felt so realistic to me. So as a result, I was so emotionally attached to the main character, and the plot was also so intriguing, and we loved to see it. All the characters were so well developed and so distinct, and I really enjoyed all of them. This book is so underrated, and for what? And it's absolutely so good. It's so wonderful, and it's so lovely, and it's so wonderful. I just said that, but it's so lovely and it's so good, and I would highly recommend it because it's so timely and it's so important. But even aside from the disability representation, it's so good. This book is so good. Like I said, I rated it 4 stars. I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called City of Shadowed Light. This book is a YA science fiction story that follows an heiress and an outlaw who must decide whether or not to fend for themselves or to fight for each other. This book was really good. I I had really low expectations, but this book ended up exceeding those expectations, and we love to see it. First of all, the world building was so immersive, and it was so intriguing, and it never got to a point where it became too convoluted, which I really, really appreciated. The plot was so intriguing, and it was so action-packed, and it was so fast-paced, and it was absolutely so thrilling. The characters were so well-developed, and I really enjoyed how the sapphic romance was developed. There is a love triangle in this book, but it ended in my favor, so we love to see it. I would gladly read a sequel to this book if the sequel ever gets published. I've heard that the sequel is already written, but it just hasn't been published yet, so I would definitely read it if it ever does get published, because this book is so good. The sapphic representation is so normalized, and it's so well developed, and it's just so lovely and so thrilling. This book is absolutely so good, and it's worth all the hype and so much more, and I ended up rating it 4 stars, so I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The School Between Winter and Fairyland. This book is a middle-grade fantasy story following a young girl who's looking for her brother and how she uncovers dark secrets along the way. I really enjoyed this book, and this book definitely lived up to my high expectations, and I ended up rating it 4 stars, so I would highly recommend it. First of all, the world building was so immersive, and it was absolutely so inventive, so we love to see it. The plot was so intriguing, it was absolutely so thrilling. The characters were so well developed and so distinct, and I was so emotionally attached to them, and as a result, I was so emotionally invested in the story because it was so well done. This book is so good. However, if I were to rank Heather Fawcett's middle grade fantasy books so far, frankly, I would put this book at the bottom just as a default, but overall, this book was so good. It's just that I preferred Ember and the Ice Dragons and The Language of Ghosts more, but this book is really good, and also I rated all 3 of her books so far 4 stars, but the point is, I would gladly read more middle-grade fantasies from this author in the future because her writing is so good, and this book is so fantastic and so good, and I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The Grimrose Girls. This book is a YA dark academia urban fantasy. I believe that's how it's categorized, although I will say that the fantastical elements of this book are less prominent than I was expecting. But anyway, this book follows 4 girls as they investigate the murder of their best friend and how they discover connections to ancient fairy tales along the way. This book is so good, and it's so fantastic, and I ended up rating it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. First of all, the diverse cast of characters was so awesome. Of the 4 main characters, one of them is Elle Ace and Asian, if I'm remembering correctly. One of them is lesbian and also half black and half native Hawaiian. Isn't that so cool? Another one is another lesbian, and another one is also disabled. We love to see it. I love seeing casual, diverse representation. This book is so good, and also all of the side sapphic romances were so well developed, and I really enjoyed them. Every single character is so diverse and so distinct and so well developed, and I really enjoyed how the friendship was formed between each of them individually and also all 4 of them together. I don't know if that makes any sense, but anyway, the plot of this book is so intriguing, and it's so compelling, and it's absolutely so thrilling. The world building is so interesting too. This book reminded me of A Lesson in Vengeance because of the dark academia aspect, and also because of the lesbian main characters. But anyway, this book is so good, and it's so well done. Also, in case you're wondering, the disability representation is chronic illness representation. But anyway, this book is so good. I rated it 4 stars. The characters were awesome. The plot's awesome. The world building is awesome. Everything's awesome. And this book deserves all its hype and so much more. So with that, I would highly recommend it. The last book on this list, but certainly not the least, is called Wildspark. This book is a middle-grade fantasy. It's kind of more of like a science fiction steampunk type of fantasy. But anyway, It's fantasy and follows a young girl in the search of her brother and how she discovers so much more than that. This book is so good and it's so underrated, and I really enjoyed it, so I ended up rating it 4 stars. First of all, the world building was so inventive and it's so interesting and it's absolutely so intriguing. Second of all, the plot was so intriguing and it was so thrilling. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. I really enjoyed how the friendships were developed. I love platonic relationships because I think that they are so important and so timely, and I love them in this book. This book is so good. It's so inventive and it's so interesting and it's absolutely so intriguing, and it kept me on my toes every single step of the way. I was so immersed into this story, and this book is so good. It's absolutely so good and it deserves so much more hype. So with that, I would highly recommend it because I ended up rating it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. So in conclusion, my least favorite book on this list by default is The Truth According to Blue, since that's the only book on this list that I rated 3 stars, and my favorite book on this list is A Kind of Spark, since again, that's the only book on this list that I rated 5 stars, since I rated all the other books in between 4 stars, but I would recommend all the books on this list because they're all really good. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the ladybug emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!